Hello everyone. In this video I am going to show you how to set up Kerberos. I have couple of machines where on machine 1 I have installed Active Directory server and on the machine 2 I have installed the IAM server. Both of these machines are part of the same domain, which is example.com. Okay. In this video I am going to show you how to set up Kerberos on the machine 1 where my Active Directory server is running. Before we see the steps, there are few prerequisites that we need to follow as part of the Kerberos configuration. The first and foremost thing that we need to check is the Active Directory server and the IAM server must be configured to use the network time protocol server, and we need to ensure that the time synchronization is functioning correctly before configuring Kerberos. If the time difference between the server and client is greater than the configured limit, which is by default 5 minutes, Kerberos clients cannot authenticate to the server. Okay. Also, we need to ensure that the DNS server is functioning correctly on all the client and server machines before configuring Kerberos. The other prerequisite that we need to check is if a firewall separates the Active Directory server from the IAM server, the firewall needs to open the ports TCP88 and UDP88 so that IAM can communicate with the KDC on the Active Directory server. Okay, these are the three basic prerequisites that we need in order to set up Kerberos. Okay, so now coming to the steps, there are basically three steps that we need to follow in order to set up Kerberos. The first and foremost step is to set up Kerberos server, which will be on the Active Directory machine, and the second step is to set up and configure IAM server, which will be on the machine where IAM is installed, and the third step is to configure your browser, which can be on the IAM server, or it can be an altogether a new machine where just the browser is installed. Okay. In order to set up Kerberos on the Active Directory machine, first we need to create a user in the Active Directory for the IAM server. So in order to do that, log on to the domain controller computer as a user with the administrative permissions. In our case, we need to log on to the machine 1 where the Active Directory server is installed and log on to the machine as the domain user account who has administrative privileges on the Active Directory server to create a user account. Now create a user account in the Active Directory for the authentication of IAM server. For that, go to the start and search for Active Directory's users and computers and open it. Create a user account by going to the domain name, select the new and click on the user account. Specify the first name, full name and the user logon name in the new object user window. Click next and specify the password. Unselect this user must change password at next logon checkbox and select this password never expires checkbox. Click next and click on the finish button. Now we need to create the service principal for the user account we have created in the previous step. We use set_spn command to create a service principal. So to do that, open the command prompt and enter the set_spn command as follows. We use -s switch to create a SPN. Specify the service class as HTTP even though our IAM server is running on the HTTPS protocol, followed by the hostname of the IAM server. In my case, the hostname of the IAM server is something like this. Now specify the user account which we have created in the previous step. Okay. But we need to ensure that the hostname that we specify here must be in lowercase characters. This is due to the fact that the DNS translates all the host names to lowercase, and the keytab file must match exactly what the DNS reverse lookup returns. Otherwise, the Kerberos authentication would fail. So we need to correct this host name to something like this. Press enter to create the service principal name. Run this command again with a fully qualified domain name server. Also make sure that the service class is entered in capital letters here, which is HTTP. And in my case, the fully qualified domain name will look something like this. Followed by the SPN user. But we need to make sure that the fully qualified domain name that we specify here must match exactly with what the DNS server reverse lookup returns. So in my case, though the fully qualified domain name is with example.com, it is still reachable with ca.com. So we need to correct this fully qualified domain name to something like this. Also, we need to ensure that the hostname is in lower characters. Okay. Press enter to update this service principal username object. Also, during the creation of service principal names, we should always ensure that the service principal names we create should be unique within the domain. If we set an user account to have a service principal name, do not set it to another account, otherwise the Kerberos authentication would fail. For more details, please refer to the documentation. Once the service principal name is configured, we need to generate a Kerberos keytab file which will be used by the Active Directory Server and the Key Distribution Center KDC during the Kerberos authentication. We use ktpass command to generate the keytab file by mapping the service principal to the user account which we have created in the previous step. So to generate a keytab file, open the command prompt and enter the following ktpass command. In my case, the ktpass command will look something like this. Here, this is the fully qualified domain name of the machine where the IAM server is running. But if the IAM server hostname contains the uppercase characters, we should always make sure that this principal is created in all the lowercase characters. This is due to the fact that DNS translates all the host names to lowercase, and the keytab file must match exactly what the DNS reverse lookup returns. Otherwise, the Kerberos authentication would fail. So we need to correct the host name of the IAM server to lowercase characters. Also, we need to make sure that the fully qualified domain name specified here should exactly match with what the DNS reverse lookup returns. In my case, though the fully qualified domain name of the IAM server is this, the server is still reachable at ca.com instead of example.com. So we have to specify the fully qualified domain name as something like this. Otherwise, the authentication would fail. Also, avoid port names while specifying the SPN here. Also make sure that the realm name specified is correct as it is case sensitive. Press enter and the keytab file would be generated in this specified path. In my case, it is created in C folder as iamadmin.keytab. Once the keytab file is created, we need to copy it to the machine where the IAM server is running. Okay. In my case, I'm copying this imadmin.keytab file from Active Directory server to the IAM server which is running on this machine. Okay. Please make sure that you copy this file to the protected areas in IAM server, because anyone with read permissions to this file can use all of the keys it contains. Also, permissions to this keytab file must be restricted and monitored by the administrator. The next step is to configure IAM server. After you have generated a keytab file and copied it to the IAM server, you then need to install a Kerberos client on the machine where IAM server is running. So in order to create a Kerberos client, we need to create a file called krbfi.conf by placing all the appropriate details of Kerberos realm, domain name and the KDC name. In my case, the krbfi.conf file will look something like this. Here I have specified the Kerberos realm, which is example.com in uppercase characters, and the Active Directory server name and the domain name, which is in lowercase characters. This is very important because the Kerberos realm name should always be in capital letters and the domain name should be in lowercase letters. Now save the file as krbfi.conf or krbfi.ini and place it in C Windows folder. We can also place the file in C/winnt folder. However, we need to make sure that this file is readable by the IAM server which is running. Once the krbfi.conf file is created, we need to now configure the Kerberos settings in IAM server. So in order to do that, open a browser and launch the IAM URL. You can use localhost or fully qualified domain name of IAM server in order to launch. Log in to the IAM server as admin user. To support Kerberos authentication, we need to first configure the LDAP provider. So for that, go to User Federation and add an LDAP provider. Since we support Kerberos authentication backed up by an Active Directory, we need to select the vendor type as Active Directory and provide the necessary details of the Active Directory machine. We can also test the connection and ensure that the details provided here are correct. Once the details are provided, we need to enable Kerberos in the Kerberos integration section. Turn on this Allow Kerberos authentication and provide the necessary Kerberos details. In the Kerberos realm field, enter the name of the Kerberos realm in uppercase characters, as this is case sensitive. In our case, the Kerberos realm is example.com. In the server principal field, enter the full name of server principal for HTTP service, including server and the domain name. Also, we need to ensure that the server principal name that we are providing here should match with the server principal name that we have given during the keytab creation. In our case, the server principal is as shown in the screen. In the keytab field, we need to specify the location of the Kerberos keytab file that we have copied from the Active Directory server. In our case, we have placed the keytab file in C folder as imadmin.keytab. In case of Windows, we need to specify the path with double slashes. Optionally, we can enable the debug. Okay. Once the details are provided, save the configuration. The next step is to configure browsers on the client machines. As I mentioned earlier, the client machine can be the IAM server itself or any other machine where the browser is installed. However, these client machines must also be joined to the Active Directory domain and be logged on with a domain user account. Note that if the client machine is not joined to the domain, then it will automatically fall back to the default login page during Kerberos authentication. By default, all the browsers today support Kerberos authentication. However, it is disabled by default for security reasons. We need to explicitly configure these browsers in order to support Kerberos authentication. The exact steps depend upon the type of the browser we use and on the which OS the browser is installed. In general, we need to configure the browsers to trust the host by adding the IAM server's hostname to the trusted sites zone. In order to configure Internet Explorer, we need to follow these steps. First, we need to log on to the client machine with a domain user account. In my case, I have logged on to the machine where IAM server is installed. Also, I have Internet Explorer 11 running on this machine. Open the Internet Explorer browser, click on the Tools icon and select the Internet options. In the Internet options dialog, go to the Security tab and add the IAM server URL to the trusted sites zone or the local intranet zone depending upon your enterprise policy. If you want to add the IAM server URL to the trusted sites zone, then select the trusted sites zone and click on the sites button and enter the IAM server URL in this field. Note that the fully qualified domain name of the IAM server that you specify here must match with the name that you have specified during the key tab creation. Once you specify the name, click on the Add button and click on the Close button. In case you want to add the IAM server URL to the local internet zone settings, then you need to select the local intranet zone here and click on the Sites button. Ensure that the first two checkboxes include all local intranet sites not listed in other zones and include all sites that bypass the proxy server checkboxes are selected. Click on the Advanced button and add the IAM server URL in this field. Ensure that the fully qualified domain name of the IAM server that you are specifying here should match with the name that you have specified during the key tab file creation. Okay. This step is optional if you have already added the IAM server URL to the trusted sites zone. Okay. Once the IAM server URL is added either to the local internet zone or the trusted sites zone, then go to the Advanced tab and scroll all the way to the Security section and ensure that the Enable Integrated Windows Authentication checkbox is selected. Once you select this checkbox, click Apply and click OK and close the window. Also ensure that the automatic login in Internet Explorer is set with the current username and password. Not to check that, go to Internet Explorer Tools icon and click on the Internet Options. In the Internet Options dialog, select the Security tab and click on the Custom Level button. Scroll all the way to the User Authentication section and under Logon, select the Automatic Logon with current username and password. Click OK to apply the settings. Click S on the warning dialog and click OK to close the Internet Options dialog. In case of Google Chrome, the steps would vary depending upon the type of operating system you are using. If you are using Windows operating system, Google Chrome will use the Internet Explorer settings. So we need to first configure within Internet Explorer's Tools Internet Options dialog in order to support Kerberos authentication for Google Chrome. On Linux and Mac OS X, we need to whitelist the IAM server URL when Chrome is being started. For more details, please refer to the documentation. In case of Mozilla Firefox, we need to manually add or whitelist the IAM server URL to the trusted sites list in order to support Kerberos authentication. So to do that, open the Mozilla Firefox browser and enter the URL as about:config in the address bar. Click on the I accept the risk button and in the search dialog box search for network.negotiate-auth.trusted-URIs. Once the preference is listed, double click on the preference and enter the preference value as the URL of the IAM server. In our case, the URL of the IAM server is as shown in the screen. Note that the fully qualified domain name of the IAM server that we enter here should exactly match with the fully qualified domain name that we have entered during the key tab creation. Once you specify the IAM server URL, click on the OK button and save the preference. Once the browser configuration is done, you can verify your configuration by launching the IAM URL. If the configuration is correct, you will be able to automatically log in to the IAM server without prompting you for the username and password. Make sure that you enter the IAM server URL which you have configured in your browser. In my case, since I have logged on to this machine 2 as John, I am able to auto log in to this machine with John user. Once the configuration is working, you need to add or update the auto login properties in phoenix.properties file in order to auto log in to the DevTest portal machine. Okay. For that, go to your installation directory and go to the Lisa home, click on the phoenix.properties file. Okay. By default, phoenix.im.redirect login to IAM property is set to false. We need to set it to true in order to auto login to DevTest portal. Also specify a client ID which will be used for a auto login. Now save the file. Restart the registry followed by the DevTest portal. Once the DevTest portal is up and running, launch the DevTest portal URL in the browser. You should now be able to auto log in to the DevTest portal.